Hi, this is Paula Gloria, and this show is called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole because we like to go into topics more deeply. I'm very honored to have with me two very special guests that have to do with my passion, which is public access. Dyandria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good being on your show.
And John Gulino, thank you for being on the show, John. What I want to talk about today is the meaning of public access. And I've just done a show with Dyandria. I've done many of them. Her story is well known among the producers here and in the New York community who avails themselves of public access television. And now through the internet, it's being known more and more. But people don't know John as well. Do you want to explain your relationship to public access?
Well, I got involved with public access in 1999, so it's actually 10 years. And I used to work here before the digital age, back in, 2002. And I've come back to MNN to start trouble.
Oh, he's like me. Troublemaker.
How did you start at public access?
1997.
In 97? So
yes,
just
2 years before.
Years before.
Yes.
And that's when your troubles with the court started?
Yes.
So you were looking for...
I went on public access because I was telling a friend of mine, the media won't cover stories of corruption against the system. And so she said, well, then you become the media. That's why I ended up here.
Right. Well, you know what my story is? I was into cellular telephones, and then I found out about wireless cable. And this is a technology that actually, because of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, was buried. But before the technology was buried, I was really excited to operate a little station. I had hoped to get the license. I applied to the FCC for San Luis Obispo. And I was having my little retail furniture store in Berkeley, and I thought someday I'm going to have a television station in San Luis Obispo, and I'm going to talk about holistic medicine, because I had just started to read about the Rife frequency generator. He was a man who worked with alternative cancer therapies. And then, things took a different turn. And then when that opportunity didn't become available, because after the 1996 Telecommunications Act, they threw out all these applications, just found little weird things wrong with all of them. They threw them out and they auctioned them off, and then they buried the technology. So I said, well, to my friend that I worked with on this, I said, I just wanted to have my little holistic television show. And he said, you know what? You don't even need a license to do that. There's public access. And I said, what is that? And he goes, well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure. I just know because he had been studying the licensing end of things. He knew from that point it was available. But it was not until Alan Steinfeld introduced me to Manhattan Neighborhood Networks when I came in here, because he had to show New Realities, that I actually entered physically the building, an actual physical location. And for me, it was like a religious experience. It was like coming into a cathedral.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people have that experience when they come to MNN.
Yeah.
It's like a visceral experience for them. They suddenly they see opportunities pop up in there.
But I needed someone to initiate me. See, Alan produced the show. He made it happen. I never would have figured out how to take classes and things like that. So you constantly need to be informing people, kind of holding them by the hand, and helping them get into it. You had an urgent message. I was sort of semi-urgent, because I felt better medicine was important. But your case is still...
Well, we all have urgency.
Yeah.
We're all motivated to come here because we all have something to say. And it's a big pressing matter too. It's not like something frivolous.
So tell Dyandria now your story.
Oh, well, when I used to be the playback operator with your show, I used to always get phone calls to pull your show. And
were those phone calls from the district attorney's office?
No, those phone calls came from MNN, and every time your show I think it used to come out like 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 5:30.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't know that was going to be a pattern eventually to a bigger implication.
To pull shows?
Not just but to pull the channels as well.
To pull the whole channel?
Yeah, and you alluded to something about maybe people being paid. specifically to do these things?
I'm quite sure. While I was in jail, somebody had called. I was picking up my messages from jail. Well, first, I was receiving a whole bunch of phone calls. Dyandria, your show wasn't on today. So it used to be on Wednesdays. And I went, what? So the following day, I called up MNN and I spoke to Vivaldi. And Vivaldi told me I had to pull it because the DA had called him and said that there's a court order that means your show is not allowed to air anymore. I said, what? I said, no court order exists. And if it did, you would have a copy of it. And you don't, because it doesn't exist. I said, I will sue you. And my program's been on since.
Yeah.
But before then, during the time that you're alluding to,
it's the same person.
I was getting my programs, like half of it would air, and the other half would not air.
Do you understand we're talking about the same person here?
Oh, he's the one who kept telling me to mess up.
To pull the channels, and he was actually doing it, and I was fighting with him and putting it back on.
But you know, I want to actually...
Oh, you fought with him?
Yeah.
Vivaldi.
Fought with him from me?
Alan stuff over there wants to know.
Yeah, he's a Vivaldi hugger.
You know, a lot of times we get our needs met in different ways, different people. But I think the important thing is whether we're getting our needs met or not, that we keep a wider picture, that because a society where everyone's needs are being met is something scientifically possible. I mean, as Harold Channer is saying, scarcity's been transcended.
Yeah.
You know, we have the technology for to alleviate a lot of the workload, but the wealth is coming from the ownership of what's alleviating this workload. So a lot of problems come because of financial concerns. People do what they wouldn't ordinarily do because they're feeling financially constrained. So if we can take that away, I think we can find a lot more cooperation. And that's why there's different innovative solutions, and I'm always looking at some choices too. I mean, you really, I've seen a lot of fighters in the system. There's another lady, you don't know her, I don't think, Luisa Esposito, or she didn't know you. I was surprised you all didn't know each other, but she had a personal injury case, and her lawyer wanted to sexually abuse her.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's documented explicitly.
Yeah, and the DA wired her, you know, went in, you know, the whole works. But then all of a sudden it just jammed, you know, nothing is moving ahead on that. Now she also, I've talked to sort of more street savvy people. They say, just give the guy a blowjob, you'd get a better award in court, you know, a better settlement.
Ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, but let me tell you, people like you,
that I would
like
not have done for my daughter. You know, if I could have gotten her back by doing something like that, forget it. Well, because I still have to live with myself.
No,
but he's connected though.
I know,
he has very strong ties that keep him what do you call it? He keeps his license. This man has not been disbarred.
But see, again,
does she give
like
his
Harold
name?
Channer trying to be, his name's on the internet.
You saw the threats. He goes, I know this person, I know that person, I can go to this person, I can go to that person. He's a gangster. The guy is a gangster.
But we don't want to deal with the thug mentality. We don't want to deal with the people who are taking the orders. What we want to do is be savvy, patient, wise, loving, forgiving, magnanimous, so that we can cut the strings of who's making people do these things and find out who is giving these orders. Because unless we discover this, we're not going to have the just society that we're looking for. People like Dyandria, you came from privilege, right? You grew up in what part of it?
Sutton Place.
In Sutton Place. So she wasn't used to not getting her way. Now a lot of people...
No, you've got it wrong. My parents didn't give me anything. I had to work from the age of 12 just to buy my clothes.
Yes.
I was mistreated. I did not. I came from a very expensive neighborhood, and my parents are worth millions, but I got nothing.
I do understand that.
The kids in school would call me Cinderella.
I do understand that, but still, you had a model in your mind from people who, if to have millions means there's some type of accomplishment in the world, some type of ability to take a thought and to express it.
Oh, yes.
I want to know more also about your background in Thessalonica, because that part of Greece is a very interesting part. We are deprived of our histories a lot of times. If older people don't tell their histories to younger people, how are you going to figure it out? You know, you have to do some seance or something. But I think all of us have in our backgrounds nobility. Times where we would do...
Our names actually come from nobility, our last names.
How is that?
All of us. Our names derive from a clan.
From a clan?
Are you going to 6 degrees of separation? Is that what you mean?
Well, she was saying we all come from nobility.
Well, that there have been people in our past that have made the unpopular choice, the less socially acceptable choice, the choice, like Dyandria, many people, her criticizers, will say, look at what she did. She alienated herself from her child. She should have just gone along with it. I think a lot of kids maybe would just sort of grow up and say, well, that's how it is, that's life, and then maybe they'd get together with their mother, maybe they wouldn't. But if you know that love has to do with taking care of your family, but also your whole society. So when John was told to pull the channels, I'll never forget when you came on my show. You know, I can find the exact moment now on YouTube. You know, your life, you can pace it off in seconds and minutes and seconds. You were saying when people had this mentality, let's just go home. You know, we got the orders, let's shut the channels and let's just go home. And then you said, okay, go home, you know, you go home, we'll take care of the society. That was the expression, take care of the society. That's what I'm saying. Where does that come from in a person, whether they're a corrupt judge or some type of thug that's carrying out an order? How can you nourish that nobility in them so that they will?
You usually can't, because anybody who has that mentality to begin with is sort of a psychopath or a psychopathic personality or sociopathic. So they do the things that they do for money.
But what you're saying...
Money is their god.
But then what you're saying is that we have sociopaths in very high positions.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes. In fact,
you didn't know that?
That's what we were saying about politics of insane people. The world is run by insanity.
Yes.
It's the politics of insanity.
You
and
didn't
you're
know
dealing,
that?
and that's what the laws are for.
Except when you
and they're using the law as a cloak.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
I mean, come on, that's why I'm here.
Later on, we're going to have a Middle Eastern panel, and one of the members is Seth Farber. And he's...
Dr. Farber?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
Maybe you want to stay and be on the panel.
Yeah.
You know? But he
was in my
mad
court.
rights.
He was an activist for me.
Yeah, well, a lot of times to silence somebody who has a strong legal case, they will say they're insane. And then they take away their rights.
Exactly.
Or the case, I don't know what happens, the case evaporates because the person's insane. So if you have rights for the insane, then they're not going to accomplish anything by taking a sane person, calling them insane. They'll just have to look at the merits of the case. But again, this takes a lot of people to do the right thing.
Was I the only program on MNN that was asked to be pulled?
When I was on duty.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Well, I'm just glad because you now
makes me feel.
She's corroborated.
Wow,
She has
I did a good job.
Everything I've been saying.
Yeah.
She's corroborated it. You right here is the proof, right here. It's on camera. Dyandria has proven my point outright.
There's
the corruption that went on in MNN went straight to the top, and it filtered its way down to the grass, you know, to the level here.
What about Posar's case, though? He was banned for 4 years.
That's extreme,
though.
Yeah,
I never heard
that
of
was extreme. He got a little. he was yelling and yelling, I want to go back into this studio because there was a false alarm, fire alarm, and his program was live at that minute. So he said, I want to go back, I want to go back. And she said it was too much yelling.
Too much yelling. John, do you think it's beyond the pale to consider that if there's something very controversial going out live, that some orders would come from we don't know where, because we really don't know who's on the board and who's controlling public access? Could it be possible that they'd pull an alarm? From your experience?
Sure. It's all in operation. All you need is a phone call from a thug, from the FBI, the police department.
No, but not to pull a fire alarm. That must be some
type
of felony. You mean
just petty stuff?
If there's no fire and you pull an alarm, that's got to be illegal.
But you mean like a petty thing, like somebody just wants to be a troublemaker and just pulls the alarm?
Well, I think, yeah, that's bad news.
Well, that does happen. Sure, there are pranks. There are pranks that have gone on.
No,
here.
but I'm saying
there
pranks.
Are bomb pranks.
But I'm saying pranks that would coincide with some very sensitive information going out, like Posar.
If somebody had it, if his show was like, for example, like Dyandria's show, very incendiary type topic.
Absolutely, he had a photograph of my former husband naked in bed with my daughter.
That's when the fire alarm went off?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're saying here. There's a very deep-rooted, connected sort of entity that controls MNN through other means, and I think it's a law enforcement. It's a form of law enforcement going on.
So
it's it doesn't. There's no orders. We don't know where it's coming from. It just happens.
Now using the cancer model of Simoncini, because I was telling Dyandria about this oncologist in Italy, he says that cancer in the body is kind of like a spider web, and he actually has the DNA signature, so that Candida is not an opportunistic happenstance because of a debilitated cancerous system that's been weakened so that the fungus comes in, but that the fungus is it, so that if you disturb one part of the spider web or even kill it, rip it away, it sends ripples to another part that then retreats and can regroup. So in this case, who is this entity? What do you think, Dyandria? Who runs MNN?
Well, the top of there's 13 families that control the entire world. And the United States is not the biggest country. It's really Britain. You remember the Boston Tea Party?
Well, Webster used to do the whole Britain thing, but I question that too.
No, that's it. That's where all the banks are.
But I know
you
a
have
lot
to
of
listen
British
to
people
David
that
Icke.
are poor too. But I take exception to some of David Icke's material.
From the king, queen, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean they're taking children away in England also.
Yes.
In the courts.
Yes.
So it's not like the English. It's like this money and power is going to England, and they're making it worse for the Germans and the French.
No, it's there's good English and bad English. I'm talking about the politicians, the corporations, the bankers.
But let me tell you how passionate I'm about this. Do you know the Queen of England drinks raw milk? They're passing laws against raw milk, but she herself has a homeopath. She knows what the right
you need
nutrition.
A prescription.
And she's pushing 100. She's old.
Right.
So there's a lot of evidence that if we get the right information,
she's also
we'll be healthier.
There's also the famous story about her being a pot smoker too.
Being a pothead smoker?
Yeah, they smoke pot at Buckingham Palace.
But
she took it for menstrual cramps or something.
Yeah, but the laws against marijuana and raw milk are very similar. I mean, it's freedom of choice.
I can't believe they actually put people in jail for raw milk.
Yeah, up in Canada.
I was so shocked that I was like, milk?
You just found this out?
No, when I was studying, the raw milk trial. Yeah. I was like, this is ridiculous.
What do you mean, the one or the one in Ontario?
There's a current trial going on, but Manny's on, right.
I'm actually, yeah.
It's absurd.
I wanted to actually have you, or either you or Joe, on a show because Rick Simpson, Dyandria, we haven't caught up for a while.
Simpson, yeah.
Rick Simpson is a man in Canada, a straight guy, who had a head injury. He went to the doctors and he got put on every medication you could imagine. None of them were helping. He had a lot of pain. Finally, someone gave him a joint, and he felt better than any of the medicine.
Oh, my goodness.
So then he went to his doctor, and he said, Canada, medical marijuana is legal, so give me a prescription. The doctors refused to do it. And he said, well, it's bad for you. We need to do more studies. He goes, how many years do you need to study a plant? It's been around for thousands of years. Yeah. So he said, well, what if I made it into an oil? Would that work better? And the doctor said, yeah, you know, you're not going to ingest the smoke, that'll be better. So he had a position working in the hospitals where he had access to laboratory equipment, distillers and so on. So he could take the hemp, the leaves, put it in a solvent, boil off the solvent, and what you're left with is oil. This oil, he took a tiny amount, not enough to get you high, but it started to cure his problem. It started to solve his problem. Then, because he had it, he started giving it to everybody in the neighborhood, and it was solving all kinds of problems. Then he had skin cancer, which was burned off in the typical way. And once he decided to put it on his skin, another skin cancer that was coming up. So he put it on, bandaged it up, 4 days later, it just drops off.
Wow.
So it turns out there were studies done in the 70s showing that THC, which is the active ingredient in marijuana that makes people high, also gets rid of cancer. Yet another suppressed study. So because he was going so gung-ho, spreading it all over, everybody knew. He went to, what was it, the Legion Society, John? It was the Veterans Society in Canada, something like that.
It's pretty official, yeah.
And he went and he made a presentation, and then the head office came down and stopped it because, you know, because it threatens the whole industry. But it's an industry of such suffering. So if you look carefully at this book, it's these two loving hands, ostensibly on the sick person's hand, just showing how much suffering that we're causing for the sake of keeping a medical therapy in place.
Okay, but what can we say about Simon Sinek?
What about him?
He's very controversial.
So am I. People say that my charity is fake. You know, they've said horrible things about me on the
What about the
internet.
manslaughter charges? What do you think of that? That's three of them.
I think it's so easy, and I think when you look at the cases of doctors who, that's what they always say about them when they take away their license. They're saying it's manslaughter.
He doesn't have a license anymore, does he?
He does. He had to fight for it, though. Most of these doctors, they keep him in court. It's usually $1 million later that they get out of court, and they say, look, I came into this incarnation to practice medicine, not law. And Dyandria herself knows. You were studying paralegal in jail?
Yes.
A lot of people who are wronged start to study law that they ordinarily wouldn't have been interested in before.
I did everything myself. I did my motions, my petitions, my appeals in federal court, my lawsuits.
But I mean, Simon Sinek,
Hang on, you're talking about a case with breast cancer.
Yeah,
because
that was pretty
just as I
horrific.
was rushing off to the studio, I caught that. Women with breast cancer that are treated with chemo and radiation, do you want to know why radiation and chemo is so bad? It's because after you zap the fungus, the cells next to it are also zapped. Okay, we all know that. It kills good cells along with bad cells, and everybody wants to hold on to their cells. But think of this. Those debilitated and killed good cells become food for the bad cells. So you actually accelerate the process.
right, and it's
So
carcinogized those cells, and those cells are diseased, and then they're eating.
Well, this is something, I was talking to Dean Lauren. This really shocked Dean because Dean was very married to the genetic theory of cancer and an alteration on the gene. Basically, our body is made up of cells, bacteria, and fungus. And antibiotics are fungus, so penicillin. So everything used judiciously and in balance makes for a lovely life. But any one out of control, I mean, you can't only have cells. We need bacteria in our gut to help the digestion. We obviously need fungus. Otherwise, I mean, antibiotics, so many people would be
Well, we've got to make
goners
sure
without
our
it.
immune system is working too.
Yeah, well, you've got to balance all of it. So I would bet you'd take a person that was going to, like they did this for the raw milk one. They said this person died, but when you look at it, it's very questionable whether they died of the wrong milk. So the lady who died of breast cancer, she maybe wasn't even treated by him. And if she was, maybe they got her at the end. He may not be responding on the email because of Druid Anthony. Maybe I can see how they have to be ultra careful. The doctors have to be
Well,
ultra
Simon
careful.
Sinek says there are cases where it does not work, and he's very adamant about it. And that's usually in a stage 2.
Well, now, this is why I brought that model up with MNN, and I think this is why Harold Channer wants to keep a comprehensive viewpoint. Let's not be throwing our energies away, just scattering them here and there, at the most throwing aspersions against a rather low person on the totem pole. when instead we could kind of pool our resources, both on staff and producers at MNN, and viewers, because really in the 70s or 80s they were saying, oh, you know, this will only cost a little bit, cable television, and then Ugly George kind of jump-started it. But now people are paying $100 a month. So the viewers should be interested in this. Who is running the cables, the cable companies, let alone the public access stations?
Who's running MNN?
Yeah, but I mean, where's this $100 a month going to?
It's a lot of money. And
It's
how
a
much is the
huge
franchise
amount of
fee
money.
now? $5 a subscriber?
I don't know. Oh, you
It's
mean
like-
how much?
How much money you pay every month toward MNN?
I don't know.
It's
Have you
like-
ever thought about
no,
these
digital,
things?
yeah,
No.
people who
Big
subscribe to
bucks?
MNN,
No.
they pay.
I like to think about
They
big
pay like
bucks.
$3 or $4 each. They pay about $3 or $4 each a month.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is, if Simoncini says this doesn't work in all cases, I think it's like the spider web. You've got to be able to take the whole fungus out. So you've got to find out where it's lodged. And he also is not that big on austere diets. Now, austere diets will change the pH from an alkaline, which fungus likes, to an acidic, which fungus doesn't like. So I would imagine drinking a lot of baking soda isn't going to do it, because you have an internal mechanism of constantly balancing the alkalinity and acidity.
Right, you could get sick.
Yeah, so if you're just artificially
But they do
dousing
prescribe it in
yourself
a pill
alkaline,
form. It is prescribed
he's-
post-operative.
It could be.
It
now.
is given as a pill, as an astringent.
Baking soda?
Yes, sodium bicarbonate is given in a pill form, but it's
I
usually
started-
post-op,
Yeah.
and it's given in small doses, and it's used as an
You only have
astringent,
2 minutes
like the
left.
iodine pills I was telling you about.
Oh yeah.
Right, that's another thing they do.
Yeah, I could imagine.
So
Well,
those are astringents. They keep the body.
You know,
they-
what Simoncini is begging for is not to make him, you know, like the messiah of cancer cures. He's just saying, let the research fly. Let the real results of the research be known.
Well, who's going to be doing that research?
Stop. No, the research is done. The studies are there. The good scientists and researchers have written it up. It's the interpretation that's been taken away. That's the problem. He says, if the research could really roll, he envisions you could come in with cancer and you'd be given a pill for 10 days and you would be able to utilize all the good machinery in an effective way.
Do you believe that could ever possibly happen? I don't.
I believe you're
I
going to.
absolutely
But I believe
don't.
you're going to talk to your daughter someday too.
Well,
You see, I really do.
No,
I hold these models in my mind.
Do you
no,
believe
but
there's a-
this I don't believe, because the pharmaceutical business is huge. You were working on my programs that we did on the...
Oh, I have to wrap it up, you guys.
Okay,
So thank you so much for joining me. This has been an excursion farther down the rabbit hole with two very dynamic public access producers and people who've been on the staff. That's John Gulino. Thank you for joining me,
Thank
John.
you.
And Dyandria. Dyandria, thank you.
It's nice meeting you, Dyandria.
You too.
Finally.
So you meet on set? Isn't that kind of cosmic? Well, I'll post this and let's see where we go with it.
We done?
So is that a wrap? Yeah, I guess that's a wrap.
Yes, ready.
Okay, so now we'll get the panel out so we can do the Middle
A
East
lot of
one.
people say that there is no cure for cancer, no matter how you slice and dice it.
No,
They say
they're
the
wrong.
only- They say the only operative is cutting it.
No.
Yeah, but
That's what
No, I'm saying there are people there who believe that. That's the ones who or the
practically
proponents-
everybody believes that.
proponents of surgery, like with Drew, for example. He's losing his entire everything inside.
Drew?
No, he's a friend of ours. He's from Milwaukee, and he's having his entire intestine ripped open.
It's horrible.
That's where a lot of this comes from.
What chairs do we want?
I want that panel thing, so...
Is it Daniela, Paula, Gloria?